The question was asked on a Tuesday in the 47th session of the Galactic Council's Galactic Council's Defense Posture Review Committee by a Dravath delegate named General Orath Vel Orath Vel, who had been on the committee for 11 years and who had, by his own account, always wanted to ask it. The question was simple. Ambassador Akafor, O.H. Kafor, General Vel said, with the specific precision of a military man asking a military question in a diplomatic room. The Terran Concord has not commissioned a new warship class in 312 years. Every other military power in this council has built, upgraded, or replaced primary combat assets in the past 50 years. Some have done so multiple times. He paused. Why has Earth not built a warship in 3 centuries? The committee room was quiet. Not the polite quiet of a room waiting for a response. The specific quiet of a room in which 23 delegates had just registered that someone had asked the question none of them had asked, and were now wondering why none of them had asked it. Ambassador Thomas Akafor set down his pen. He looked at General Vel with the expression of a man who had been waiting for this question for 11 years, and had, in those 11 years, decided exactly how to answer it. General, he said, I'm glad you asked. Comment 3 centuries, if you ride with Buddy Ugg. Now step into the answer that made 23 military delegates very quiet for a very long time. Today's story is about a question that sat in a committee room for 11 years because nobody wanted to be the one to ask it. 312 years. No new warship class. Every other military power in the galactic community building, upgrading, replacing. Earth, nothing. The galaxy had noticed. The galaxy had discussed it in intelligence briefings and diplomatic assessments, and the careful, indirect language of people who wanted to understand something without appearing to find it threatening. They had filed it under Terran strategic posture, unclear, and human military development non-standard, and requires further analysis for 3 centuries. Nobody had simply asked. General Orath Vel asked. And Ambassador Thomas Akafor, who had been the Terran Concord senior diplomatic representative for 7 years, who had sat in this committee room for 7 years watching 23 delegates not ask this question, who had spent 7 years with the answer ready, answered. What he said did not make the committee feel better. It made them understand something they had not understood before. Those are different things. The Galactic Council's Defense Posture Review Committee met 4 times a year in a chamber on the Council's primary station that had been designed, by someone who understood committee work, to be neither comfortable nor uncomfortable, the precise functional middle of a room where people came to work. Ambassador Thomas Akafor had been attending these sessions for 7 years. He was 56 years old, originally from Ibadan, Ebah, Nigeria, Nigeria, with 30 years of diplomatic work behind him that had taken him from Earth's regional diplomatic corps to the outer corridor framework to this committee room, which was about as far as diplomatic work went. He had the quality that very good diplomats developed over long careers, not the quality of saying the right thing, which was a skill, but the quality of knowing when the right thing needed to be said and waiting for the moment. The patience of a man who understood that timing was the difference between an answer that informed and an answer that changed something. He had been waiting for General Vel's question for 7 years. Not specifically Vel's question, the question. The one that the committee danced around every session, that appeared in their defense posture analyses as the Terran military development anomaly, and in their private assessments as the thing about Earth that doesn't fit the model, and that nobody asked directly because asking directly required acknowledging that you didn't know, and in a room of 23 military and diplomatic representatives of the galaxy's significant powers. Acknowledging you didn't know something about Earth felt like a specific kind of exposure. General Orath Vel had 11 years on the committee and the specific directness of a military man who had decided, sometime in the past year, that 11 years of not asking was long enough. He had asked on a Tuesday because the committee met on Tuesdays and because there was no particular significance to the Tuesday, which was, in Akafar's assessment, the right way to ask a question you had been holding for 11 years, without ceremony, as if it were simply the next thing. Akafar set down his pen. He had been waiting for this. "General," he said, "I'm glad you asked." 312 years, Akafar said. "You're correct." The last warship class the Terran Concord commissioned was the Resolute-class Resolute Deep Engagement Vessel, initiated in year 41 of the post-contact era. We have maintained, upgraded, and in some cases extensively refitted existing vessels since then. We have not built a new class. He looked at the committee. 23 delegates, military advisors, diplomatic staff, all of them with the specific attention of people who had just had a question they had been carrying answered, and who understood that the answer was not finished. "I want to answer your question accurately," Akafar said, "which means I need to answer a different question first." He paused. "What is a warship for?" General Vell looked at him steadily. "A warship is a platform for projecting force," he said. "It delivers weapons to targets, protects assets, and deters aggression through demonstrated capability." "Yes," Akafar said, "that's what a warship does. I asked what it's for." The committee was quiet. "The distinction matters," Akafar said. "A warship's function is force projection. Its purpose is to make a specific calculation come out differently than it would without the warship. The calculation is, what does the other party believe will happen if they initiate conflict?" He paused. "The warship changes that calculation by being present, capable, and credible." "Yes," Vell said, "that is deterrence." "Deterrence," Akafar agreed. "Now, here is the question I have been sitting with for 7 years in this room." He looked at the committee. "When was the last time a species with full knowledge of Earth's military history chose to initiate direct conflict with Terran forces?" Silence. Vell looked at his files. He was, Akafar had come to understand over 7 years, a man who checked his facts before speaking rather than speaking and then checking. He looked for 40 seconds. "The Verath incident," he said, 63 years ago." "The Verath incident," Akafar agreed. "And how did that resolve?" Vell was quiet for a moment. "The Verath faction withdrew after 17 hours, without completing their stated objective." "Yes," Akafar said, 17 hours, against forces that were, by the committee's own analysis at the time, significantly outgunned in terms of current generation weapons platforms." He paused. "Why did they withdraw?" Another silence, longer. "After-action analysis," said the Cathali delegate scholar Preth Vell, Prethvel, who had been on the committee for 6 years and who had the specific quality of a scholar in a room of military thinkers. She had read more of the relevant history than anyone else in the room. "The Verath faction withdrew because their intelligence assessment had failed to account for Terran reserve mobilization speed. They expected a standard response timeline. They received something different." "Something different," Akafar said. "Yes, let's talk about that." Part 3. What 3 centuries built. "When the Terran Concord last built a warship class," Akafar said, 312 years ago, we were a species that had been in the galactic community for 41 years. We understood at that point what a warship was for. We understood deterrence. We understood that military credibility required demonstrated capability." He paused. "We also understood something that 3 centuries of not building warships has made difficult to see from the outside." He opened the folder in front of him. "The Terran Concord's military budget for the current year," he said, "is the second largest in the Council. We spend more on military capacity than any species except the Draveth Empire." He looked at Vell. "You knew that?" "Yes," Vell said. "What the budget breakdown shows," Akafar said, is that we spend approximately 8% of that budget on platform maintenance, keeping existing vessels operational. We spend 12% on weapons systems development and integration. We spend 6% on intelligence and early warning infrastructure. He paused. The remaining 74% is categorized in our public filings as human capital and readiness. Human capital, Vel said. Personnel, Akafor said. Training. The specific kind of training that produces a certain kind of soldier, a certain kind of commander, a certain kind of operational unit. He paused. For 312 years, while other species built new warship classes, the Terran Concord has been building something else. What? Vel asked. The people who fly the ships we have, Akafor said, and the doctrine they fly them by, and the specific institutional knowledge passed from generation to generation for 3 centuries of what happens when someone decides that Terran forces are the path of least resistance. The committee was very quiet. The Resolute-class vessels, Akafor continued, were designed 312 years ago. They have been refitted. They have been upgraded. Their weapons systems are current generation, but the hull design, the core architecture, the fundamental platform, it has not changed. He paused. Do you know why we stopped building new classes? Nobody answered. Because, Akafor said, we figured out what we actually needed. And what we actually needed was not a new hull. It was the crew inside the hull. It was the doctrine the crew operated from. It was the 3-century institutional memory of every engagement Terran forces have been in and everything those engagements taught us about how humans fight. He looked at the committee. A new warship class takes 15 years to design, build, and bring to operational readiness. A crew that has been trained for 20 years in 3 centuries of doctrine takes 20 years. We decided 20 years was the better investment. General Vel, Akafor said, I want to return to your deterrence framework. The calculation. What does the other party believe will happen if they initiate conflict? Yes, Vel said. When the Draveth Empire commissions a new warship class, Akafor said, the calculation changes for any party assessing the cost of conflict with you. The new class has specific capabilities that are documented, assessed, incorporated into threat models. The parties who might initiate conflict with you update their models. The deterrence is visible, measurable, and current. Yes, Vel said, that is the purpose. The Terran Concord has not given anyone a new warship class to model in 3 centuries, Akafor said, which means that anyone building a threat model for conflict with Terran forces is working from 312-year-old platform data, updated for known refits. He paused. And from the after-action reports of every engagement Terran forces have been in since then. The after-action reports, Scholar Prethvel said slowly. There have been 9 significant engagements involving Terran forces in the post-contact era, Akafor said. 9. In 312 years, the Terran Concord has not initiated any of them. He paused. In 7 of the 9, the opposing force withdrew before the engagement reached full escalation. In 2, it reached full escalation. In both of those, the engagement concluded within 72 hours. The committee was doing the same math Akafor had done many times. 7 of 9 withdrew, Vel said. Before full escalation, Akafor said, yes. Why? Because, Akafor said, at some point in each of those 7 engagements, the opposing commander received enough information about what they were actually facing to update their threat model, and the updated threat model produced a different calculation than the one they had started with. He paused. The Verath incident, the reserve mobilization speed, the opposition's intelligence had modeled Terran response based on standard protocols. What arrived was not standard protocol. What was it? Vel asked. It was what 300 years of training a specific kind of person to fly a specific kind of doctrine produces, Akafor said. It was people who had been trained to win the engagement that was in front of them, not the engagement they had prepared for. It was commanders who had been given 30 years of case studies of every time a Terran force had been outgunned and what they had done about it. It was crews who had been told from their first day in training that the ship is the minimum, you are the variable. He looked at the committee. The Varath faction's intelligence said, outdated platforms, manageable threat. What showed up said, the platforms are 30 years old and the people inside them have been training for this for their entire careers and they are not going to stop. Silence. The calculation changed, Vel said. The calculation always changes, Akafor said. Once they see what they're actually facing, the question is whether it changes before or after. He paused. We would prefer before. 7 of 9 suggests that eventually it changes before. I want to be honest with this committee, Akafor said, because honesty is more useful than the alternative, and because I think you deserve to understand what you are sitting across from. He looked at the 23 delegates. The Terran Concord's military has not built a new warship class in 3 centuries because we made a decision 3 centuries ago that the marginal value of a new hull was lower than the marginal value of a better prepared crew. He paused. That decision has compounded. 3 centuries of compounding. Every generation of Terran military personnel has been trained by the previous generation, which was trained by the generation before that, which stretches back to a continuous institutional lineage of people who have been doing this specific work for 300 years. He paused again. The knowledge in that lineage is not in any document. It is not in any weapons system. It is in the Piop. And if the people are lost, Vel asked. Then it is lost, Akafor said. Yes, that is the vulnerability. A weapons platform can be rebuilt in 15 years. 300 years of institutional knowledge cannot be rebuilt in 15 years. This is why we protect our people the way we protect our people. He looked at Vel steadily. The Dravath Empire has noticed that Terran forces take extraordinary measures to recover personnel from hostile situations. You've assessed this as a cultural value. It is a cultural value. It is also a strategic doctrine. Vel was quiet. The people are the warship, Akafor said simply. The hull is the delivery mechanism. Scholar Preth Vel said. The Varath Incident After Action report noted that Terran forces executed 17 distinct tactical adaptations in 17 hours. The analysis described this as non-standard flexibility. Non-standard flexibility, Akafor said. Yes, the training produces that. 30 years of being told, the doctrine is the foundation, not the ceiling. When the doctrine doesn't fit the engagement, you are authorized and expected to find something that does. He paused. The Varath commanders were working from a fixed playbook. The Terran commanders were working from 30 years of being trained to write new plays. Against opponents with current generation platforms, Vel said. Yes, Akafor said. And they adapted 17 times in 17 hours. 17 documented adaptations, Akafor said. The report noted documented. There were more. The room absorbed this. Ambassador Akafor, said the Velhari Velhaatri delegate, Commander Sova Tren, Sova Tren, who had been listening without speaking for 40 minutes. The warship question. You said you have been waiting for it. 7 years, Akafor said. Why? Because, Akafor said, the accurate answer to why Earth has not built a warship in 3 centuries is the most useful deterrence communication the Terran Concord can offer this committee. The accurate answer is more informative than a new ship class. He paused. A new hull tells you what the platform can do. The accurate answer tells you what the people inside the hull have been building for 300 years. Another pause. I have wanted to tell you for 7 years. General Vel gave me the opening. Vel looked at him. You're saying the question itself was useful to you. The question was the invitation, Akafor said. I don't walk into a committee room and announce what our military doctrine is. That's not how this works. But if someone asks, I answer accurately. And accurately in this case is the most significant thing I can say in this room." The committee took a 10-minute recess after Akafor's answer. This was not scheduled. The committee chair called it because 10 minutes was what the room needed, not to deliberate, but to do what people did when they had received significant information and needed to let it settle before the next thing. Akafor poured himself coffee from the committee room's service station. He drank it while it was hot, because after 7 years of waiting for the question, he had earned a hot cup of coffee. When the committee reconvened, General Vell asked a second question. "Ambassador Akafor," he said, "if the Terran Concord decided tomorrow to build a new warship class, what would it look like?" Akafor set down his coffee. "I don't know," he said. Vell looked at him. "I genuinely don't know," Akafor said. "I am a diplomat. I can tell you what 300 years of military doctrine has built in terms of personnel and institutional knowledge. I cannot tell you what our engineering and military leadership would design if they decided a new class was warranted." He paused. "I can tell you what they would start from." "Tell me," Vell said. "They would start from the doctrine," Akafor said. "Not from the hull. They would start from 300 years of understanding what Terran crews need to do and work backward to what the platform needs to give them. The hull serves the crew, not the other way around." He paused. "The last time we did this, 312 years ago, we built the Resolute class. It was designed specifically around what the crews of that era had learned from the previous generation of engagements. It fit them. They fit it. That's why we've been flying variants of it for 3 centuries, not because we can't build something new. Because the doctrine evolved and the Resolute evolved with it, and they have remained, for 3 centuries, a functional match." "But the doctrine has continued to evolve," Vell said. "Yes," Akafor said. "Which means at some point the Resolute will not be the functional match anymore." "Yes," Akafor said. "And then you build." "And then we build," Akafor said. "When the crews tell us the platform is the limiting factor, we build what they need." He looked at Vell. "They have not told us that yet." Vell was quiet for a moment. "That," he said slowly, "is the most concerning thing you have said today." Akafor raised an eyebrow. "You have 3 centuries of the most rigorously trained military personnel in the galactic record," Vell said, "flying platforms that those personnel have not yet found limiting." He paused. "Which means the personnel are still ahead of the platforms." "Yes," Akafor said. "The platforms are 300 years old," Vell said. "Refitted," Akafor said. "But yes, the core architecture is 3 centuries old. And your crews are not limited by them." "Not yet," Akafor said. Vell looked at him for a long moment. "Ambassador," he said, "when your crews tell you the platform is the limiting factor, when you build the new class," he paused, "I would like advance notice." Akafor almost smiled. "I'll see what I can do," he said. The 47th session of the Galactic Council's Defense Posture Review Committee produced, as all sessions produced, a formal summary report. The report was 41 pages. 38 pages covered the standard agenda items, the 9 species whose defense postures had been reviewed, the assessments, the flags for further monitoring, the standard committee business that the committee existed to conduct. 3 pages covered the Terran discussion. The 3 pages were, by the committee's own internal assessment, the most significant 3 pages the committee had produced in 11 years. The lead finding read, "The Terran Concord's absence of new warship development over 312 years does not represent a military development gap. It represents a strategic prioritization of personnel development over platform development, executed consistently over 3 centuries, producing a military force whose primary capability advantage is institutional knowledge, doctrinal flexibility, and crew quality rather than platform generation." A pause in the document. The committee assessed this finding as requiring a revision of the Standard Military Capability Index as applied to Terran forces. The index's current weighting for platform age, as a negative capability factor, does not account for the specific dynamic in which 3 centuries of crew development has outpaced the constraints of 3-century-old platforms. The second finding read, the committee noted Ambassador Okafor's statement that Terran crews have not yet identified their current platforms as a limiting factor. The committee further noted General Vell's observation that this implies Terran military personnel capability currently exceeds what their existing platforms can fully utilize. The committee assessed this as a significant finding and noted that the Military Capability Index will require further revision when the Terran Concord does commission a new warship class, as the new class will be designed specifically to address capabilities that the existing platforms cannot support. The third finding was the briefest. It read, General Vell's question, which prompted this discussion, has been on the committee's informal agenda for 11 years by his own account. The committee formally recommends that direct questions about unexplained capability anomalies be asked earlier in future sessions. General Vell, reviewing the report before it was finalized, read the third finding and added one line in the margin. It said, agreed, I should have asked 11 years ago. The line was included in the final report. Ambassador Thomas Okafor received a copy of the final report 3 days after the session. He read it in his office on the council station, with a coffee that he had for once managed to drink while it was still hot. He read the 3 pages on the Terran discussion. He read them again. Then he wrote a short message to General Vell. It said, the report is accurate. Thank you for asking the question. 7 years was too long to wait for it, but it arrived at the right moment. The committee needed the full context, and the full context required the question. A pause. For what it's worth, the crews have not told us yet, but our engineering teams filed a preliminary design framework last month. The direction they're working from is exactly what I described. Hull serves crew, not the other way around. He paused again. When they tell us, I'll let you know. Vell responded within an hour. He said, I look forward to it. And I will admit, knowing the new class will be designed around what 3 centuries of crews couldn't do with the old one is either very reassuring or very alarming. I have not yet decided which. Okafor responded, both, it is both. That is, I think, the correct answer. In the Council's session archive, the 47th Defense Posture Review was filed in the standard location. The report's executive summary contained one line that had not been in any previous defense posture review executive summary in the committee's history. It read, if you have a direct question about a capability anomaly, ask it. The answer will be more useful than 11 years of modeling the anomaly from the outside. Below it in the archive's notation field, someone had added, General Vell asked, Ambassador Okafor answered. The committee's threat model for Terran forces has been revised. See attached. The revision is significant. And below that, the final notation, added by the archive's classification officer, who had processed the report and had clearly read all 41 pages. It said, Earth has not built a warship in 3 centuries. The crews have not told them the platform is limiting yet. When they do, see the preliminary design framework, attached at the committee chair's request, currently marked preliminary and subject to revision. The preliminary design framework was 40 pages. It was, by every assessment the committee had access to, the most technically sophisticated military platform specification produced in the current generation. Its cover page said, Design requirements derived from 300 years of crew performance data. The hull serves the crew. The crew has been waiting. If you made it all the way here, comment 3 centuries and tell Buddy Ugg, when the new warship is finally built, what do you think it looks like? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, because the most dangerous military in the galaxy is the one that spent 300 years building the people before it built the platform. Here is what I want to leave with you today. Every other species in the galactic community looked at Earth's military development and saw the absence of something: a new warship class, a platform upgrade, the visible demonstration of capability that military thinking understood as deterrence. They saw the absence. They did not see what the absence was making room for. 3 centuries of the defense budget going into people, into training, into the institutional knowledge that passed from generation to generation and compounded, into the doctrine that said the hull is the delivery mechanism and the crew is the weapon, and when the crew is better than the hull they are flying, you keep training the crew and you wait until the hull is the limiting factor. The crews had not told them yet. That sentence is the most important sentence in this story, not because it means Earth is uniquely powerful, though the committee had strong feelings about what it implied, because it means that 300 years of investment in people had produced people who were still ahead of platforms designed 3 centuries ago, still finding ways to do things the platform's designers hadn't anticipated, still writing new plays from a 30-year education in how to write plays. The platform serves the crew, not the other way around. The men this channel is built for know this principle. They have been in rooms, in teams, in organizations where the system was 3 centuries old and everyone was working around its limitations. And they were the ones who found the 17th adaptation in the 17th hour, who made the platform do what the designers hadn't planned for, who were still ahead of the tool instead of limited by it. The question was why Earth hadn't built a warship. The answer was, because they were building something better. The hull serves the crew has been waiting. If this story landed for you today, if you recognized Akafar waiting 7 years for the right moment, or Vel asking the question that had been in the room for 11 years, or the design framework that said the crew has been waiting, then this channel was built for you. Subscribe if you haven't. Every week we bring stories about what 3 centuries of building the right thing looks like when someone finally asks. Leave a comment. Say 3 centuries if you ride with Buddy Ugg. And tell me, have you ever been the person in the room where the platform was limiting everyone else and you were still ahead of it? I read every comment. I want to know. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. The man who has been working with old tools and newer ideas and has not yet found the tool to be the ceiling. Tell him, the crews haven't told them yet. Keep going. The hull that fits you is being designed. It starts from what you can do that the old one couldn't hold.